Hello and welcome to the Arc at Headingley for the latest edition of the Rugby League version of Japanese endurance programme, Back Chat. We're joined by our usual list of suspects today. Thingy from What's It, or as a more professional presenter would call him, Danny Lockwood from League Weekly. We've also got Chris Irvine from The Times and Sunday Times, and the living legend that is Garry Schofield. We're looking forward to a magic weekend. We always look forward to a magic weekend of Rugby League, but this weekend, Chris Irvine, it really is magic. So are you looking forward to it?
It is. I am looking forward to it. I hope the weather is going to be as kind as it usually is on this particular weekend, and we've got some two fascinating days, six great games in a city that successfully hosted Magic last year, and will hope to do so again and maybe get a record crowd. We had 67,000 over the 2 days last year, and the word seems to be that we'll get over 70,000, which would be an achievement.
Because I think one of the things last year achieved, Danny, was the fact that locally the Newcastlevians, or whatever they call them, the Newcastle people, really Novocastrians. Thank you. It's good to have somebody who's got a bit of intelligence on the panel. But I think what happened last year was the people of Newcastle really realised this was a very good event.
Yeah, I think it's looking like being a cracking weekend again. The Newcastle population have always been up for a party, a good old knees up. I think the big market on Saturday night will be the place to be, or not, depending on your age and attitude.
I was going to say your age.
I won't be there, Dave. But I think I've always thought it was a little bit contrived, the fixture list for Magic, but I think this year particularly it's thrown up some really cracking ties, and not what you would in previous seasons thought would be the headline acts. And I'm really looking forward to Wakefield against Catalans, and I don't think I'd have been saying that in previous years. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you saw Wakefield last weekend against Warrington. They are looking, dare we say, like the real deal.
They are, and certainly a top 8 team as well. But when you look at all in fixes, what are this weekend at Magic, they've all got a purpose in them. Yeah. All got a purpose. You look at Salford, Widnes. Salford near the 2 points, Widnes on the spiral, so they need to try and keep that top 8. Cass, Warrington, Saints, Huddersfield, Leeds and Wigan, who are in some good forms as well. But yeah, I think the Wakefield Catalans, we're all looking forward to it. And as mentioned, Dave, every fixture's got a purpose.
Yeah. I think it's 8 out of 9 under Chris Chester now for Wakefield. Catalan have been terrific this year, especially on the road. Can you see Wakefield actually keeping this up?
That's the difficulty. I think the last time I was on the programme, Widnes were riding high at the top of the division. Since then, they've lost 7. Yeah. So
has it been that long?
It has been that long, but since Widnes last won. But I think that this is the trouble with this season. There's no consistency, is there? There's just no consistency this season. If Wakefield can beat Catalans, that really is a massive statement, I think.
I don't think it's as much about can Wakefield keep it up as can the teams below them, Dave, pick it up. Yeah. And I don't think there's a really great sign of that happening. Yeah. I just think Leeds' season is pretty much dead and buried, and I think Wigan, having had a bit of a setback last week, will be licking their lips about coming up against the old enemy in what would normally in previous years have been the headline match. I think it's lost a little bit of that allure, but the fact is this is a great opportunity for Sean Wayne's men to get back on the horse. And I think you look at Saints and Huddersfield, again, you'd have expected that to be a top 4 tie in other years, but those are 2 teams that Huddersfield still struggling to find their feet a little bit, couldn't get over the top of a weakened Catalans at the weekend, while Saints they just look clueless at times this
season.
As
well, we were talking about Wakefield here, Dave, and what Chris Chester's done there, it's been quite sensational.
What has happened? Because we've seen in the past Wakefield winning the odd game at home against the big clubs. They've always been capable of that, but we've never seen them have this kind of consistency.
Well, what Chris Chester has done is he's let the players express themselves. He's seen what players can do, and certainly one player is Jacob Miller. There's a player in Jacob Miller, and I've been quite critical of him, to be honest with him. We're over at Hull and certainly playing at Wakefield. But what he's been given here, he's been given that role to play with that vision, to play with that awareness, and he's put a smile back on not just Jacob Miller's face, but every Wakefield player from 1 to 17. The big factor is they all know the roles of the individuals, but as a team collectively, as well, they all know the roles there and what they're supposed to do. So the ideal combination at Wakefield, and it's like Hull have got now with Sneyd and Price, and you look at Warrington with Gidley when Sandoz there, they've got the ideal combination where Miller's the main man, same as Sneyd, but then Leon Price and Finn They'll come in and say, give me 5 minutes now, I'll take the pressure off there and I'll direct you around the field as well, take the pressure off. Everybody knows their own roles, but he's letting everybody express themselves, play with that vision and awareness, and you can see that in the play. They're playing proper rugby league, not just Wakefield, but I think Hull are going the same way, Warrington do it, Casford do it in the Darrell Powell, and so do the Catalans. And I wish everybody would play this sort of rugby league rather than the boring, robotic time games what we see. If Brian Smith had still been at Wakefield, I'll tell you now, Wakefield wouldn't have won 2 games.
But that's the thing about Brian Smith. When Brian Smith and the
what is the thing about Brian Smith?
They lost.
What is the thing about him?
Well, this is.
He put in place. I mean, one, he did most of this recruiting, and he put in place those structures. And I think he did a lot of the groundwork. Now, perhaps what he didn't have, what Chris Chester has, is that sense of that bit of that. That's what Wakefield has.
Yeah, but on the field, they're not playing to a structure. They're playing what they see. You know, that open game.
Chris Chester's a Wakefield lad as well. I think he's maybe he's the right man at the right time to come in. But the fact was that Brian Smith, when he left there, the club were at the bottom of the Super League. They're now in 6th place, and Brian Smith was really questioning the future of the club, wasn't he? When he left, several barbs were launched against the club. When Chris Chester went in and spoke to Michael Carter, he didn't say he didn't want any more players. He felt that the players were there, and he's been proved right in that respect.
And if you look around the sport, these guys don't get to be professional full-time, Super League players because they're rubbish. They've all got something inside them, and it's the great coaches. And I think Darrell Powell is top of this list for me, who sees something in them and he can get it out of them. He brought Liam Finn out of the Championship. Featherstone didn't want him, and he was a revelation in his spell at Castleford. He's moved on to Wakefield, and he's still got more to give. And like Garry said, these are old-fashioned halfbacks playing old-fashioned rugby league, and it is delight. But more than that, what Chris Chester has given them in players like Danny Kermond, is brought out that camaraderie, that belief in the shirt, that belief in themselves, and he's given them something to go
and they've got some great
and you saw what they did to Wigan, and that was not such a bad Wigan side as to be beaten by such a margin. And similarly with Warrington, that was a good Warrington team, and Wakefield just said about them.
Jowett and Johnston are exciting talents, aren't they? In the back three, they're exciting. So it's not just the older players and things like. And I agree, Jacob Miller seems to be flourishing now, and he wasn't before. And I think it's belief that Chris Chester has given. Whether it will continue,
I will. There's no doubt about that. It will continue.
If they beat Catalan this weekend, do we have to start thinking about Wakefield as potential top 4? I mean, that as ridiculous as that would have seemed 8-9 months ago.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave, the way they're playing at the moment, you wouldn't rule it out, honestly, the way they are playing, and it's just a pleasure to watch them. And the environment, what they've got down there, it is, honestly, it's a pleasure to watch them. And also, we haven't mentioned the derby, what's going to be happening between Hull and Ilkeston Rovers. When you look at the way that Hull are playing as well, again, from 1 to 17, after that performance against Widnes, and so that's so far away now, 10 weeks ago or something, the players addressed the situation, didn't let the coach in there, the players said, nothing to do with this with the coach, we're quality players, we're going to sort it out. Boy, oh boy, how impressive are they? How impressive are they?
So admirable that, because a lot of, we were talking about this at the weekend, weren't we? A lot of coaches get the stick, and the coach is not doing this, and Brian McDermott's probably getting stick now from Leeds fans, when in fact, it's the players on the pitch who have to hold their hands up and perform.
Everything that Wakefield have got and Hull have got, the Leeds Rhinos don't have at the moment. And how you get that back, I don't know, without some kind of radical change. I think we're all sick and tired of talking about injuries. Everybody's had injuries. But the fact is that these are professionals, and some of those guys, those senior players at the Rhinos, have got to put their hands up when they're out on the field. And they're putting their hands up at the moment in surrender, and it just isn't good enough.
I think, to be honest, when we're mentioning now, what the whole players did, and Darrell Powell at times have been critical of his players, certainly when they got walloped by Warrington, and he says, this is not good enough for us. If the players don't want to be here, play for me, they can clear off. I think when you look at the Leeds players at this moment in time, there's no honesty there, is there? There is no honesty in their performance whatsoever. And I've said, after that performance against Castleford, it was gutless, it was clueless, and it was rudderless. And the reason why I'm saying that, you look up the middle up there, that forward pack, it's not intimidating anybody. It's not intimidating, it's no purpose whatsoever. Clueless, okay, the halfbacks can't work without any supply from the forwards, some good ground there. But when they are getting decent field position, there's no creativity whatsoever. And you talk about rudderless, and we tried to leave this alone all season, haven't we? Where, sorry, but without Kevin Sinfield, there's no lead on that pack, and they've got to start standing up for themselves.
But you look at recruitment as well. I think you've got to question Leeds' recruitment. You look at Hull, and they brought in Sycamano, they brought in Frank Pritchard. That's a big statement, and they're two players that really kind of doing so well for them. Leeds brought in Keith Galloway, and they brought in Beaufaloon, not Fobaloon, Beaufaloon. Neither of whom have done anything so far for Leeds. And I think the recruitment from Leeds is being shown to be somewhat poor.
Just to play devil's advocate on this, though, you looked at Hull's recruitment last season, and a lot of people said, Sneed and Price, your halfbacks, that's not good recruitment. Yet this year, they're two of the best halfbacks.
Well, they are, and Scoy touched on this. You've got to, you don't win anything without a pack that's going to get you some field position. Liam Watts and Scott Taylor have been absolute revelations.
England class.
Absolutely, they have just ripped it up, and it's that self-belief that the guys have in themselves and the people around them. The fact that they could leave Pritchard and Sika Manu out and send them away on international duty, that was such a vote of confidence in the rest of those guys.
I'll tell you what, though, Danny, they had two players who come in Ellis and Minicello. If Minicello's not the best second rower in Super League this season, I've not seen it. His footwork, there's only one player in footwork in Super League who's got the better footwork, that's Matty Russell, the Warrington fullback. But Minicello for a big man, but also too in his defence, he's just like
he's like Glenn, isn't he? Glenn Stewart at Catalans.
But the two big packs, aren't they? I think if you hit the nail on the head there, these are two big packs that are working, and it's not insignificant. It's those two teams are right in the top.
And Danny Houghton as well. I mean, I give a nod, because if you're talking about an English-based hooker who should be, if clean sheet of paper should be on that list for Wayne Bennett's England team. Danny
Houghton's doing what he does every year.
I think he's doing more than that, because there was a really fascinating stat in the cup tie against St Helens early in the second half. Runs from dummy half, Roby 3, Hull's runs from dummy half, albeit they weren't all Danny Houghton, something like 17.
Yeah.
And he was the majority of
them. But he's always been a consistent player, and others around him have been not consistent. And now Hull seem a very, very credible team. And it's not just Gareth Ellis as well. In his later years, he just looks such a
when he's injury free, he's pure class.
Yeah. But the comment I heard yesterday from the big prop himself in Taylor. He's saying exactly what the coach is letting them do. He's letting us play what we see. And I'm absolutely delighted to hear this from coaches rather than playing robotic. And just to go back on Leeds from this point of view, and I'm just going to say to the forwards here, if you're not ready for Saturday, because Wigan forwards are going to absolutely batter you if you don't want to turn up. Quite simply, that's what they will do.
There you go.
Big challenge for the Leeds forwards, and I'm a Leeds fan, Dave. Don't worry about that. I'm an absolute Leeds fan, and the way they're playing, it really hurts me. Like he's doing all the fans and supporters. You looked at the crowd last Thursday, 17,000 fans. Okay, Crassport plenty, but no other Super League club would get that sort of response, would they? At the bottom of the league there. So I'm just saying to you, Leeds forwards, get stuck in there, because if you don't, we're going to rip you apart.
The interesting statistic, if I could actually say that, the interesting statistic. Going into that game is Wigan and Leeds, the lowest scoring teams in the Super League this year. They're both on minus points in terms of points difference, and they're going to have to score plenty in that game to even get anywhere close to the other teams who scoring.
You look at those outside backs, particularly Callum Watkins, and I don't know what Zach Hardaker's doing out in the wing. I just don't know if that's doing me any good.
What is Zach Hardaker doing?
That is perhaps the strangest decision I can think of. If he was carrying a bit of an injury, but you needed him out there for his goal kicking or something, it isn't that. You're putting a kid in Ashton Golding, you're exposing him, and you've got the guy that was probably the best fullback in the world, apart from Greg Inglis, just 3-4 months ago. So I don't know what that says to the player in terms of building his confidence. Well, it destroys his confidence, doesn't it, Gary? I just don't get that.
Yes, it does. But also, before we came on, fellas, we were saying, on paper, when you look at that Leeds team, even now, when you look at that Leeds team, it's still a very strong side. So it's still a mystery to everybody why they're at the bottom of the league, and quite clear there's something wrong in that dressing room. And I'm feeling sorry for McDermott, as I do feel sorry for the coaches now. At the end of the day, them players have got to show some honesty to the coach, because McDermott doesn't deserve them performances.
When Gadwin Springer just took a nose down drive into the line and went through 5 players to score. I just thought.
But we talk about the unpredictability of Super League and the bounce-back ability of Wakefield this season, and this ability to put consistency together. Now is the time for Leeds, isn't it? Because they got Wigan, and I think it's Warrington away, and then Catalan at home the next 3 games. Well, so here, from a positive point of view, they can put their season to rights.
They can do, Dave, but I don't think I think even now they're just running out of time. I think a bit like
only 9
Wakefield.
games to go.
I think like Wakefield last year. I think they're going to concentrate in the middle eights. I think it's got to that time. I think, you know, we talked about crisis a couple of weeks ago. It is at crisis point. I mean, Garry Hetherington sent that letter out to the fans and all the rest of it.
And they responded.
So far. Okay, if you're going to make a statement, win at Magic Weekend. You know, Gary's laid the challenge down to the forwards, so that.
But it's very, very difficult to see where that change comes,
well,
because
but this is a club with a winning mentality for year after year after year. The golden generation, all that. The golden generation have gone now largely, and now there is a losing mentality, and they almost can't revert. They can't put it into reverse. And you look. I think the thing is, you look at Leeds, and again last Thursday, they score the first try, and then they concede one, and you can see players looking around. Who's going to do it for us? We don't know. There seems to be no plan B.
If it was any club other than Leeds, you'd have to say that the coach would have gone by now.
Yeah.
And more than that, you would have to say that people like us would all be talking about, you know, why is Brian McDermott still in the job? I think the fact that that conversation hasn't really even raised its head. It's one, it's testimony to the Leeds culture, you know, and I think we would applaud them.
Chelsea won the title and then next season got rid of Mourinho.
You know, so, but at some point, Garry Hetherington has to sit down and be honest with himself and say, where do we start rebuilding this club? But because I think they're at the point now, despite the fact that there's so many players to come back, that they have a culture problem, and they're going to have to find a way to rebuild the club with a Kurt Gidley, with a big name signing who can come in and do what Kevin Sinfield did for so many years.
Do you think they can beat Wigan this weekend? No?
Well, they can. With, you know, this game, this season is crazy enough, Dave, that anything can happen. Yeah. But it's very difficult to see where it comes from, apart from the fact, of course, that Wigan were just as woeful as them last week.
I'll tell you what, if Wigan get beat by Leeds this weekend, Sean Wayne will go absolutely bananas. So I'll tell you what, them Wigan players don't lose to Leeds this weekend. He will go absolutely bananas.
But the other thing about the...
Well, okay, we'll see. We'll get your point in just a second. Danny Lockwood, 7 days ago, was tweeting there was a feeling in his water that Leeds were going to beat Castleford. He was at the doctor's the very next morning. And we will be back with you in just a couple of minutes' time. So welcome back to part 2 of Backchat from the Arc in Headingley. Danny Lockwood, Garry Schofield and Chris Irvine with us today. We're still talking about Magic Weekend because there's so much to get our teeth into. There's so many great subplots out there. One of the games I'm looking forward to is Castleford against Warrington this weekend, because Warrington, as we know, are a very good team despite the defeat against Wakefield last week. And Castleford are showing some real form at the moment.
Castleford are showing some great form, and they're doing it in the most surprising ways. You know, the fact that they could play a prop forward in Grant Millington at standoff, put a rejected Leeds Rhinos hooker in Paul McShane at scrum half, and fashion the cup win that they did last week was terrific. They followed that up with an absolute sublime performance at Headingley when they literally dismantled. As poor as Leeds were, it would have been difficult for anyone to cope with a team playing as hot as Castleford were. You throw into that mix the fact that who looked like being runaway league leaders, Warrington, suddenly come up short at Wakefield, and you've got an absolutely mouth-watering clash, Dave. And I listen, you don't have to get up for games like this and weekends like this, because it's a big event now, is Magic. So every player will be really, you know, gnashing their teeth in delight at the prospect. I think, you know, Cass will really fancy themselves against Warrington, and Warrington will be looking over the shoulder a little bit after that surprise.
Got some payback, haven't they? After Warrington absolutely walloped them. I mean, Cass, as much as Cass have got some great performances in them, they also have some dire performances in them. One of them was against Warrington, and one of them was at home to Hull KR, and then they respond with a Salford Cup win, and then the win at Leeds. And Luke Gale came back in that game and was absolutely terrific. And we're talking England scrum half. He's really now put his hand up for that England number 7 jersey come the Four Nations. He just is such a confident player, willing to take on the line, sublime kicking game, and he really is the form scrum half.
Like Scully said, they're playing what's in front of them, aren't they?
They're playing what they see, and they're being allowed to play with that sort of freedom as well. But I got a nice little message from Luke Gale as well, because I've tipped to Jordan Lilly to be the England scrum half, and so Luke.
You're tipping absolutely brilliant.
Luke just reminded me and said, "Did you see the performance going on Thursday night?" Which I did, but absolutely outstanding. And I said, but from 1 to 17, Casford and you look at Springer, who's coming off the bench, Matt Meakin's been absolute revelation. Yeah. Dennis Solomon, if he's not the best finisher in Super League, I don't know him. Luke Dorwood with a support player there. So again, it's every player who are identifying their own roles as individuals, but as a team collectively. And with a man getting around the park, not just his kicking game, but also his organisation, his creativity.
It's that London connection. Gale was at London, wasn't he? Luke Dorwood was at London. He's retiring at the end of the season, isn't he? But in particular, McMeekin and Solomon.
But I think, but the most important thing as well here, Dave, it's like the players with Chris Chester. They like playing for Darryl Powell. Yeah. You can see that they like playing for the coach, and it's that enjoyment and that environment what they've got, and it's a pleasure to watch. And certainly with Warrington, there's going to be plenty of points between them two teams coming the weekend.
But this all goes into the mix of this very, very different season, and my personal hope that we get 2 different teams at Old Trafford. I mean, that's what we
Chris,
ultimately want to see.
There's going to be a different name on the trophy this year. There's going to be a different name on the trophy. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Warrington. Warrington have won it, haven't they? The League Leaders Shield.
League Leaders Shield, but they've not won the grand final.
Not won the grand final.
Right, the grand final.
Yeah. So on the grand final trophy, there's going to be a different name.
Out of all this, we would hope. I personally hope that we see, if it's a Hull or a Warrington or a Catalans, even a Wakefield, get to the grand final. I think that's what we want out of this season. This very, very different season, to get a different scenario, as we've seen in the Premier League, a different outcome.
It's still a long way to go. The season really hasn't bit in terms of.
But Leeds are out of the equation, aren't they? They've got to be out of the equation.
Absolutely, and I think that Huddersfield, unless they can pull something off this week, and you can wave goodbye to them as well, they're just running out of time. Saints, are they? But Saints, there's you look at that squad 1 to 17, and you think these guys should be tearing it up week in, week out about everybody, but they kind of go into a group sulk, it seems to me at times, and there's guys looking to the next fellow along. Well, you do it. Well, nobody's doing it, and I think that Kieran Cunningham and Sean Long, it's the old boys act at St Helens. There's obviously, they should have that group mentality, but it just doesn't come out in the performance sometimes, and I think some of the guys that we would have been talking about as shoo-ins for England spots come the end of the year are playing themselves out of the running.
But we're only in May, aren't we?
We're only in May.
The silverware is dished out. Last I looked in August, September, October, and we're still some way off there. We're going to get the grounds are drying even more, and maybe certain teams are going to come to the fore.
Yeah, and again, injuries will, again have a big say. Warrington have got Chris Sandow to come back, but they will want to keep Kurt Gidley fit, because I think he's just been an absolute. He's turned them around in the way that we just couldn't see happening in the last couple of years.
Yeah, Johnny Lomax as well. He's an interesting one. We talk about players in form. I mean, he's hit the ground running, hasn't he, since his return? Do you see him at the moment as potentially England's number 1?
No, Jamie Shaw.
Jamie Shaw.
Jamie Shaw without a shadow at this moment in time. No. I think he's okay defensively. He's a positional player, brings the ball back very, very well. But it's a support player and his pace. Jamie Shaw for me.
Well, you'd have to say that Zach Hardaker, unfortunately, seems to be playing himself out of what we would have said was a shoo-in selection at the beginning of the season. But I think Sam Tompkins will probably come through on the blind side. And I think that because of his international pedigree, I think that he will probably be the first name that Wayne Bennett thinks of.
But with for sure though, Dave, if Lomax did get selected, then he wouldn't let anybody down. No way, mate. No. He wouldn't let anybody down. But we're talking about St Helens for me. I can't have St Helens. We're talking about coaches with a player. Honestly, I can't have St Helens.
You're not a fan of St Helens.
The way I'm seeing him play. Right, and you look at that body language, as Danny just said, they just seem to be sulking. There doesn't seem that vibrancy there, does it? And I think even when you see from Kieran in the stands and Longy, they were two rugby league players who loved to play with a smile on their face, loved to play with what they saw. I'm not seeing that from St Helens. I'm not seeing the vibrancy from the coaches, and I'm not seeing it from the players. So it comes from the top to the bottom. If Kieran started a little bit more joyous, a little bit more smile on his face, it might come down to his players. I'm not having St Helens this season.
Yeah. So do you reckon Huddersfield could spring them?
absolutely.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yes, Huddersfield could beat Saints. Yeah.
They have been improving of
without a doubt.
Yeah. Since somebody's sat down, I think, and spoken to Danny Brough and got his game face back on, because his nose was put firmly out of joint earlier in the season. But when Brough plays, Huddersfield play, and they can beat anybody.
I think it's interesting as well, we mentioned Brough there, even on Saturday, I think when Hinchcliffe went off, McGilfrey was the captain, he got called over, so I think Danny's accepted the fact now that he ain't going to get the armband now, but you can see Danny the way he's playing, he's got that smile back on his face. Yeah, Huddersfield won't be far off making the 8, and it could start against St Helens this weekend.
We touched on them briefly in the first part of the programme, but the match Widnes against Salford and how much Widnes need a win. And how much Salford need a win, because they can still put a little bit of momentum together and make that top 8.
Well, Widnes they've just been in free fall, haven't they? I mean, we lauded them, at the start of the season, tremendous. They're at the top.
Kevin Brown was going to be the England number 6, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. That just shows how things in this crazy season can change. But a lot of pressure on Salford. Obviously, the 6 points deducted as well. They need a win. But Widnes.
We've not heard if they're going to appeal that yet. They haven't appealed it yet, Chris.
Yeah.
I know the good doctor said he was going to, and you're never surprised by what Dr. Kukash does. But the fact is, if they got that 6 points back, which I think is highly unlikely, but if they did, that would really throw it into the mix.
Just to qualify that, we know there's a press conference at Salford coming up, but this programme's been recorded before that press conference has taken place, so we don't know what's going to come from that press conference. There might be news of an appeal there, but sorry, Chris, you were going to go.
I think Salford don't have a good record, I don't think, against Widnes at Magic as well. And it's the opening game. It's the opening game again of Magic as well. And I think it's an intriguing opening game. But I also like, the other thing I like about Magic this year is it closing. It all builds to the climax of the Hull derby. I think that, which has never lets Magic down. There's always a twist. There's always controversy. There's always fireworks when when FC and Rovers meet. And I think, everybody's thinking, it's going to be an FC walkover. Well, I don't know. I mean, Rovers have got some good history in this Magic fixture.
Whatever else is happening in the league or elsewhere, they always produce those two.
No, well, the black and whites are going to murder them. They are.
Well, you say
they
that,
are.
but I mean,
the player they play at this moment in time.
Well, they should.
They are.
But the cliche of that particular fixture is that you do throw form out of the window. I know everybody says it about derbies, and people at Leeds are saying, throw the form out the window. Leeds, Wigan's always a special occasion. But that one, you do always throw the form book out the window, because anything can happen in that.
Not this time. Not the way the black and whites are playing. Not this time, would you? Right. This is going to be a walkover for the black and whites.
Right. Well, we shall see. The whole concept, the Magic concept, is this here to stay now? Is the conversation about whether we should have it or not irrelevant now? Has it planted itself firmly in the rugby calendar?
It's been here. This is the 10th year, so you've got to say it is. I think this is the fourth.
What does it
venue.
do? What's it all about now?
I think it's a showcase for the sport, and I think it's a major event. And if there's one thing that rugby leagues lacks, it's major events: a Challenge Cup final, a Super League Grand Final, international matches. Magic Weekend is established as a major fixture that pulls in a lot of people. What I would like to see supplementing Magic, possibly, are the kind of double headers that we saw in the NRL last weekend. I think double headers would be another good way to go as well. They take
games on the road quite admirably. I mean, Manly were criticised this weekend. They took their home game to Brisbane, to Lang Park, to the Suncorp, to play the league leading Brisbane Broncos as a home. They sacrificed a home match. But as a result, they got a crowd of 53,000 people that were also treated to Melbourne Storm playing North Queensland Cowboys, who sacrificed their own home match. They do this admirably. South Sydney regularly go to Perth and play there. The New Zealand Warriors will move. Will go down to Wellington to play a game. I think we need to do that more. I think you're absolutely right, Chris. But what this does more than anything is, I think it prevents the Challenge Cup final from coming back to May, which a lot of people would like to see.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
As long as we stick with Magic, that conversation will remain just a conversation.
Yeah, and the problem is that the TV audiences are not as good as they could be if the competition was earlier in the year. The momentum of the Challenge Cup is lost because we have one round and then it's 6 weeks before the next round. So does the game say we don't need the Challenge Cup anymore? Does it let it fade away? Or does it make a real bid to get it to May? or early June to make sure that it's back where it belongs.
Well, one thing for sure, you can't get rid of the Challenge Cup. It's the biggest cup competition.
It might just fade away. The way it's going, it might just fade away itself.
Well, the fans have switched off it. The fans have switched off it. You know, I mean, the only team that would have been happy in the last round was Dewsbury, who, despite getting a hiding from Wigan, you know, trebled their average home attendance. But apart from that, the fans just don't turn up. So I do think the Grand Old Cup needs some attention, and it needs a real overhaul. So exactly how you met that work.
Can you swap it round? Can you get back to a May Challenge Cup final and maybe look at the August Bank Holiday weekend as the Magic Weekend?
You can't.
You're going into the eights at that stage, aren't they? You're into the eights.
But you can't at that. I don't think you can at that point.
That's the problem.
Why not?
It's too late. It's too late. It comes after the 23 round break.
After the split.
Yeah, but if you have your Magic Weekend as the first,
as the 23rd,
as the last weekend of the wow.
Yeah, the problem that then comes. We get away with these contrived fixture lists at the moment because it's hidden in the mix of the season. I think if you suddenly gave, Hull KR said they were in 9th place and Hull in top of the league and said, right, you're going to have to play them just because it's a derby.
Yeah.
They would say, well, that is.
Well, that would come at the end of July. That would come around the end of July, wouldn't it?
That would work.
That would work.
That would work.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
I'm excited about that. I'm going to have to steady myself by leaning on Chris because that's cool. I mean, that'd be a prospect.
Shall we send a tape of this to Nigel Wood? Memo
they
to
watch. They don't admit, but they watch because they call
well, that's one thing for sure, David. You can't get rid of the Challenge Cup. No way.
No, you can't. But the problem is, it's in danger of fading away.
Well, as Danny said, they need to come up with some sort of formula to make sure the attraction comes back to it.
But the attraction of the Challenge Cup in May is that you concertina it, don't you? You get the 4 televised rounds or 5 televised rounds, and you concertina it into a 10 or 12 week period.
Week on, week off.
You tap into bigger TV audiences, and I think you resurrect the Cup that way. I think you let the Cup drift at its peril. I think that's where you're
right. Because I think that the argument previously, when it was the May final and it was switched to August, the argument was that it felt like a pre-season competition. You'd have Super League clubs going in and getting beaten by Championship teams, and you saw some very odd results because it was pre-season. But the seasons have changed.
You saw that in 1996 before Super League started. The first few weeks of the 1996 season were the Challenge Cup, and basically you got down to around about the semi-finals by the time Super League started. And Bradford and St Helens were in that final in the May.
I think there's scope for change, but the original question, Dave, was: is Magic here to stay? And I think yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The fact that they're predicting record crowds for this weekend shows that there's an appetite.
Yeah.
You know, will it stay in Newcastle? I think that all of these homes have been great for the weekend, but I think they all have their shelf life too, and that we may well see something new. You know, if not next year,
it's a great city for anyone who's not been. It's an absolutely great. It's perfect. It's like it couldn't have been designed better.
I think Newcastle is a place to be. I mean, not just for the nightlife itself, but I just think the not just the city and the stadium. Newcastle, the venue for me for Magic, and keep it there. Yeah,
and you've got the option. You know, fans have got the option of going up and down in a day. It's not that far. Staying up, you can stay city centre. You can. I feel like the Northumbria Tourist Board here, but it is. I mean, even the fact that the stadium. I don't get paid by anybody. Even the fact that the stadium is in walking, a bit like Cardiff, walking distance into the city centre. And all that.
It's got lots of attributes. Like Danny, like old Danny there.
He's got lots of attributes as
well. Like old Danny, I'll be going to my bed early. I won't be on the big market or anything like that. But for those who want to go,
I'll report back, Chris.
Thank you.
I think they'll both be on the car boot market first thing Sunday morning. So if you had to switch, if you had to move it, where would you go? Because you're saying shelf life, so where would it go?
No, I think you could go back to Manchester. It was great when it was at Manchester.
The sun always shines in Manchester.
The sun always shines in Manchester. I think you could try Liverpool. I think there's a lot of cities that you could have a look at. I don't know if London would be a choice. The Olympic
Look
Park.
Look at Coventry, the Ricoh Stadium there, the Coventry. Coventry there, but for mine at this moment in time, I like Newcastle. I like Newcastle.
Have you ever had a night out in Coventry?
That's my birthplace, Danny, so be very, very careful.
Well, we'll send you there.
It's not, to be fair, it's not the greatest of cities. But don't let people be put off. On
behalf of the Coventry Tourist Board, I must disagree.
And you can see it. You can see Everton, because there's a lot of rugby league people at Everton these days, aren't there? Who on the board at Everton, who have a lot of interest in rugby league. So maybe there, and Liverpool. That's where the Four Nations final is going to be. I'm just filling in time here because we're just about coming up to the end of part 2 on this week's Back Chat, and we'll be back for more of the same, but slightly different, in just a few moments' time. Well, welcome back to the third, and you'll be relieved to know, final part of this week's Back Chat, when we delve in matters down under, all things NRL and how they pertain to life up here. First of all, we've had this meeting. I think we've had a meeting behind closed doors this last week from the Rugby League International Federation. What a powerful body that is. We bow on our knees at their greatness. But they're going to come up with the idea of how we get around the eligibility rules.
Yeah. Basically, Dave, anybody can play for anyone at any time. That's what it's looking like. They're going to report later in the year, but they've said in time for the Four Nations. At the moment, if we had a case just very recently of Anthony Milford, star standoff in the NRL, refusing to play for Samoa because we believe he thought that would rule him out of playing for Australia. Which I think it probably should. That itself was on the back of Australia playing Semi Radradra, form winger, who is about as Australian as Scoey is. Born, bred, all of his family from Fiji. He qualifies for Australia under simple residency rules. You know, he's lived there 3 years. Australia have poached him. I think that harms the international game. The RLIF said they were going to come out and clarify all this matter, which I personally welcomed and thought it would mean they would be tightening things up. Seems not. As I understand it, more likely to happen is that any player can declare for any country at any time. So Anthony Milford could have played for Samoa last week, and if he's good enough, he can be picked by Mal Meninga to play for Australia. And vice versa, one has to presume. So I think that makes an absolute... I think it's a farce.
A non-rude word.
It's a farce, without speaking.
But that's the condemnation, though, of the way that the game is operated at international level, and a condemnation, I think, of the Rugby League International Federation. You know, it's or the dead sheep society, as I call it. I mean,
it wouldn't happen in any other sport.
No, well, the fact we play multiple rules is a farce as well. But if that's the case, Danny, if it's going to be open slather, you can play for whoever you want. So, you know, Sam Burgess play for Australia this week, and you know, maybe James Graham plays the Kangaroos as well. It's absolute nonsense.
Well, to be honest with you, that's what's going to happen, because Australia's now they're not the world number one, are they? You know, and they want that tag all the time. So we all know how well James Graham's playing. He's the best front rower in the world. Josh Hodgson's playing great down in Australia. Who's to say that Mal Meninga just saying, hey, listen, I want you to play for me this year in the Four Nations?
Certainly if they've lived there, certainly if they've lived there 3 years. We had this interesting situation just recently with Frank Pritchard, who went, you know, we all praised awful Ed and go captain Samoa in their match against Tonga. The fact is, they had an 8-year career playing for New Zealand, and beyond that, he was born and brought up in Sydney. So, has he got a chance for Big Frank to go play for Australia yet? The Australians won't wear that, because obviously they are all about experience in the NRL. So, no, I don't think we'll be seeing James Graham go and play for the Kangaroos. No. But the fact is, it could possibly happen.
Exactly.
And it just begs...
But the Milford one is a really fast... And the Milford one is a real test for the game, because if you put Milford into that Samoa team that played so well in the Four Nations last year, suddenly they're a team who are a world power. I mean, they've got the pack, they've got the outside backs. If you give them some half backs...
And the same with Radradra, who should be playing for Fiji, Dave. If we are being honest, if we're being honest about spreading the game internationally, then we have to take active steps to pump up those second-tier nations. And all this does.
The Rugby League International Federation, by doing this, is fighting against itself, isn't it? It wants supposedly it wants this kind of broad church where we have more than just 3 nations, and yet we're actively conspiring against that by this. And you're right. You look at Milford for Samoa, you look at Radradra for Fiji, and umpteen others as well. We could have a very competitive, or far more competitive rugby league, and yet we're fighting against it. It's incredible.
I tell you what, as Wayne Bennett as well got something up his sleeve here because he stopped Milford playing for Samoa. Yeah. Wayne Bennett is the England coach. Is he saying to Milford, I want you playing for England in the Four Nations and next year's World Cup? Who knows? If this rule is going to come out...
How does he qualify?
Well, Milford's an area of league, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't seem as though you need any qualification. If you want to play international rugby league, you can play for who you want, which is an absolute joke. But who's to say Wayne Bennett's not got something up his shirt there?
No, there's basic qualifications. And I think that what the RLIF will probably try to do, Gary, is sell this as being proactive towards those junior countries, as in saying... The Kangaroos, for instance, can only pick so many players in a squad. If that then means that everybody not in that, say, 25-man travelling squad is eligible to go back to wherever else they qualify, they'll probably try to sell it to us as being, a bonus. So if Milford doesn't get in to the Australian squad, he can go play for Samoa. He doesn't have to make a decision and be bound by qualification. I think that's what they will probably try to sell it as. However, I just still, it doesn't sit well at all.
Well, that just sounds like media spin, Danny. If that's what they're going to do, that's complete media spin.
Well, they've got a report, but the fact is they made an interesting appointment as well at the meeting last week. They appointed Todd Greenberg, who is the new chief executive of the NRL. He now sits on the main RLIF board with Nigel Wood and David Collier, among others. So Yeah, the chief executive of the Rugby League International Federation, Chris. So you have a brains trust, and if those guys can't get things done, then no one can.
Well, that's key to it, isn't it? Because you've got to get the NRL on board. As much as the RLIF want to stride the international stage, it's the NRL that makes the decision.
Oh, yeah, it is, because we know how long they've been on top. But at the end of the day, then, that so-called committee, what do they know about the international game? What do they know about putting on a test jersey? Make it what it feels to do that, represent the country. They want to start asking ex-players and this sort of thing what it feels like. And if somebody came to me and said, hey, listen, Scott, you can qualify for Australia, I'd say, get lost.
Yeah, but I mean,
not a chance.
Yeah, but you're saying about Josh Hodgson and James Graham, they're not going to play for Australia. Because even if the Australians said...
David. The Australians now, when they play international football, they're going to play stacks and stacks of money.
Yeah, but I mean...
it turns the heads. It turns the heads.
You go back to Adrian Morley. There was all kinds of rumours about Adrian Morley because he wanted to play State of Origin. And everyone said, he's because of residency, he's going to go to Australia. And when you actually spoke to Adrian Morley, he said, never in a million years am I going to play for Australia. I'd love to play State of Origin. What player wouldn't? But not if it means I can't play for Great Britain.
It comes to a sad pass, Dave, when the rules for qualification for a competition like State of Origin are tougher than qualifying for international.
Because, Danny, in Australian eyes, the pinnacle is Queensland versus New South Wales. It is not Australia versus Great Britain or England.
Well, we need a plan to change all that, and I don't see one.
And this Four Nations is really important. The World Cup next year is really important, but this Four Nations is really important, as you were alluding to earlier. I think it's absolutely vital on all four coaches that they entertain us. Yeah. We've got to be entertained by this international testing. We were turned off by the last test series.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Australia-New Zealand was awful.
The last test match we saw 2 weeks ago, if that's anything to go by, nobody will watch it. And I'm just hoping, because Caney, as their commentator said, he's under the Wayne Bennett factor at Brisbane there. I just hope that philosophy's not coming, to the England side. Scotland will play a little bit different because that's the way Danny Brough... By the way, Danny Brough might play for England now that eligibility might come across, by the way. But no... It's got to be entertaining. It's got to be what we want to see, entertaining Rugby League International. Because if that's the way they're going to play, they did 2 weeks ago, I'll tell you what, I won't be watching it, and that doesn't go down very well.
We're going to see, we could possibly see one of our erstwhile stars, Jared Hayne, recently departed of the NFL, turning out for Fiji in the Olympics at Rio this summer at Rugby Sevens. There's so much international sporting competition, and we're coming up to a critical 16, 17 months in Rugby League's life. We've got the Four Nations, we've got the World Cup down under next year. We really, really need to get our act together on this, Dave, and I worry about it.
But the thing is that we said all this about 2013, and it was a pretty successful World Cup, and then International Rugby League just disappeared. And that's the danger after 2017. I mean, you've got Rugby Union at the moment, so complaining that they've not got more than thinking further than 10 years ahead. We can't think more than 5 minutes ahead, and we're still waiting. I mean, we clawed it out of the RFL in the end. We eventually got some venues and timings for the Four Nations, and we might get by July something for the World Cup. But at the moment, I'm seeing tours being sold, supporters tours. The World Cup sometime between October and December 2017. That's crazy.
It's simply not good enough. And I know I've criticised the Aussies particularly for the lack of commitment to the international game. And as bad as that game was against New Zealand last week, Garry, and it was woeful, they did at least stage an international weekend where you had Fiji versus Papua New Guinea, where you had Samoa Tonga, where you had Australia, New Zealand at all levels, schoolboy, women and senior international. They had city versus country.
Not for long though.
Well,
that's not going to last. What was it? They were down to 60th pick, weren't they? There were 60 players who pulled.
There wasn't a great appetite for it, and obviously a lot of coaches will hold players back. But at least there was a commitment, and they took a weekend out of their entire schedule, Dave, to put it on. So there's not been much happening in the Northern Hemisphere.
Well, we can leap on the back. We should be able to leap on the back of that, shouldn't we?
You'd think so.
It doesn't take a great mind to say, well, let's have an England international, England, New Zealand, Australia, Samoa, something like that.
Yeah, I'll agree, without a doubt. But unfortunately, the game over here, where you put in the fixture list, but also too many games again. That's a big complaint, isn't it?
Yeah.
Too many games, we don't want it.
We've dropped the Exiles. We've dropped the Exiles plan. The county cup or the county matches went the way of most things that do in rugby league. So I think we as much as we can be critical about the Aussie commitment to it, we're not coming up with a whole lot of positive ideas ourselves.
How good would an Exiles game be at the moment, by the way? Chris Sandow, Gidley, Dave Taylor,
absolutely.
Glenn
Actually,
Stewart.
to be perfectly honest,
it would be great, wouldn't it?
You would actually, that's something you would resurrect, because actually there would be a decent Exiles.
You just wouldn't get a decent England team based.
Well, if it's international weekend,
but also that's
Graham back.
The quality of what the Exiles are over here now, what have you? That's what we should make into a free test series. Free games over a 6-week period, and people would go watch that because of the quality of players on show.
But
it would be a great test for us.
that, Super League is going to have to say, right, well, we chop back the fixtures, and they're simply not going to do it because there's too much self-interest in this game, and that's not going to just end.
We will talk to ourselves until we talk ourselves deaf and dumb.
That's what we do every fortnight. What's new there? Just in terms of players in form, Mike Cooper was in terrific form for St George.
Absolutely,
you look at our pack, you look at our potential pack, Cooper, any number of Burgesses, James Graham, and then over here you've got your
Elliot
Hills,
Whitehead down there,
Whitehead as well,
Josh
Hodgson. And then you look at the McMeekans and
Taylors and Watts over here.
Taylors and Watts,
your
Farrells.
But again, it's
wow.
But again, it's that big problem, the creativity, Dave. That's the big problem, the creativity.
Gareth Widdop is he's not on fire at the moment.
St George Illawarra put all their eggs in Gareth Widdop's basket this year. They made him the captain. They kind of gave him leadership of the team responsibility, which we would love to see him have for England, and we perhaps anticipated him having for England. The fact is, he has kind of struggled with that responsibility. They sneaked a win this week, which they badly needed. But Widdop at the moment is not the player that we hoped he would become.
And Dave's right, there's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the pack at any number. But if you picked an England side now with the outside backs, that would take you start to struggle a bit.
We've got some good wingers, we've got some good talent on the wing, and we talked about the fullback, but certainly Callum Watkins has just disappeared from view, and it's tough to see where the other centre.
You play Ben Curry in the centre.
Could Joe?
No. He's tried and failed there at the centre. Even though he's playing okay.
A while back though, wasn't it?
Even though he's playing okay this time,
2010.
I would put Ben Curry in the centre. I think it's quality.
So we play a second row in the centre.
Well, I think he's playing more.
And John Bateman in the other centre?
No, I put John Bateman in the second row. No, he's just a freak, isn't he, John Bateman?
And there's some of these players are going to get form. I mean, Hall's going to return from his injury, Briscoe, and you'd expect them to get a bit of form back, wouldn't you? If Leeds is
not in the way they wouldn't see the ball in that Leeds team at the moment, Dave. That's the problem.
I'll tell you what, Tom Johnson at Wakefield, he wouldn't look out of place in England jersey. McGilfrey, he's the form winger so far, so you'd pick McGilfrey on the wing. But Tom Johnson, if he got the call up, he wouldn't let anybody down. And you Jowett as well at fullback for Wakefield.
Let's hope Wayne Bennett's watching all these players.
Well, it's just a matter again. It's that creativity, and that's what we're going to be lacking. And who he's going to pick there? Obviously, Luke Gale. I said Jordan Lilly for me because he's one for the future. He's got to be in the squad. Stick him in there. Get him around the international guys there. But
you've got to
mark my words.
You've got to have form and confidence, and he has neither.
Well,
what about
he's got a little bit of form.
Dennis Solomona on residency grounds. They could play him.
Let's not go down that road.
If Rad Radler's played for Australia, there's no reason why
If the
Solomon...
Magic Weekend starts on Saturday, we'll be still sat here then if we're talking about that.
Right, well, we're coming towards the end of the programme, so let's just remind ourselves of what's coming up right here on this particular channel. You can check all the information out, by the way, on www.premiersports.tv. Don't forget the S. So these are the matches we've got to look forward to, and there's some real mouth-watering contests, not the least of them. Friday the 20th, Cowboys against the Broncos, grand finalists last year, one of the best games of the season so far this year when they met, and they go around again on Friday. 10:50 a.m. is the time. 3 matches on Saturday, the Tigers against the Knights at Campbelltown. We then go to the Warriors against the Raiders at Yarrow Park, and the Sharks against the Sea Eagles at Shark Park. Then on Sunday, a couple of games. Panthers against the Titans at Pepper Stadium. That's a 5 a.m. start. So if you're coming home late, try and prop your eyes open with matchsticks to see that game. And then 7 a.m. Bulldogs against the Roosters is a 7 a.m. start from the ANZ Stadium. And just the one match on the Monday. It's Parramatta Eels against the Melbourne Storm. Parramatta looks as though their hopes of a top 8 have just about been extinguished. But who knows, they might restore a little bit of pride. That's a 10 o'clock start. And a quick look ahead to what's coming up in the weeks ahead. State of Origin, everybody's mouths watering at the prospect of those 3 meetings. The first of those is Wednesday the 1st of June. Make a date in your diary, 11 o'clock, Wednesday the 1st of June at the ANZ Stadium in Sydney, New South Wales against Queensland. The second game is 3 weeks later, the 22nd of June, Queensland against New South Wales at Suncorp, 11 o'clock live as well. And the third game is July the 13th, back at Sydney at the ANZ Stadium, and that is 11 a.m. as well. So that's just about as far as we go for this edition of Backchat. We'll be back with you in a couple of weeks' time, and there's lots and lots of stuff that we're looking forward to, and we'll be chatting about as well in a fortnight's time. Thank you to our guest, Danny Lockwood from League Weekly. See, I have remembered your name this time. Garry Schofield, living legend, and also Chris Irvine from The Times and Sunday Times. Lots to talk about, lots to look forward to. Until we see you again, goodbye.